Hi people, so I read a ton of books in 2024 and now I'm going to talk to y'all about them. Let's take a moment for the book journal. It's beautiful. It took me forever to finish it because, a little backstory. So I got back into reading this year. Probably like the end of 2023, I got like really back into reading and I was reading more often, more books, more new books. And this year my goal was basically just to read as many new books as I could. But I also do a ton of rereads of my favorite books because that's just who I am as a person, you know? And so this year I didn't have a reading journal at the beginning of the year, so I did my entire reading journal in December. Specifically like the days after Christmas. It was hectic and it was long, but it's all here. And so I'm going to talk about books. I also have my computer right here just in case I forget something about a book and I need to like look at the cover and stuff. So I'm going to be double checking like my readings and stuff like that. But without further ado, we're going to get into this. Actually, there's a little bit more to do. I didn't start YouTube until halfway through this year, so I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into like the first 6-ish months when I wasn't like doing wrap-ups, just because like you can't find my reviews on these books anywhere except when I'm going to be talking to you right now. So I will give more opinions on the earlier books, but I'm still going to try to keep it short, one couple sentences, something like that. In January, we started off strong with Cytonic, the third Skyward book by Brandon Sanderson. I rated this 3.5 stars. I really like this series. I do. Cytonic is my least favorite book of all of them because I understand what's useful and important and necessary to the story, but honestly, I kind of wish Cytonic was the novella and the 3 novellas was the actual third book. Personal opinion, still a good book, 3.5 stars. Defiant. Fourth book, rated that one 4.25 stars. It was so good, but mostly because I love the slugs, and there's one line at the very end of the book that made me actually almost cry because it was so cute. It's basically that high because of the slugs. I also just don't really like the main character, but that's a me thing. She got on my nerves. Now we've got the first new book I read. No, that's not true. I read Defiant. That's the first new book I read this year. First new book from a different author that I'd never read before this year. It was Wildwood Dancing by Juliet Marillier, and then the second book, which is Cybele's Secret by the same author. Do not know how to say that name. Both 5 stars. So cute. They're both the first one is a 12 Dancing Princesses, Princess and the Frog, can't remember, Sleeping Beauty, maybe, retelling. They were so good. It was so cute. I loved the first one. And then the second one, Cybele's Secret, don't ask me what twist of what fairy tale that one is. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I remember finishing that book at 2 in the morning and I was crying my eyes out because of how happy it made me. Good book. I recommend both of them. Then we got The Lightning Thief by Percy Jackson. No, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I actually fell in love with the series all over again, and it was because I started watching the TV show. Sorry, my bangs are driving me crazy. They're going to be tucked under. I fell in love with the TV show because I don't think I've ever actually watched the movie, but I was watching the TV show because it came out and I wanted to see it, obviously. So good. Actually, I fell in love with the series all over again, but 5 stars for that one. Then I read The Demigod Files, which is like by Rick Riordan. That's like it's like not a novella, but it's like a series of short stories kind of in one thing. I don't know. I rated it 3 stars, which is kind of there, you know. There is like one really important story in there though, which I think is so funny that like Rick Riordan includes these super important moments in novellas that not everyone has read, and it's like a key plot point in some of the later books. So I'm glad I read it because otherwise I would have completely forgotten about that. But I'm also like, Brandon, you don't really make a lot, not Brandon, Rick Riordan, you don't make a lot of sense sometimes, and where are you putting these really important books and like plot points you need. Anyway, and then I reread The Selection series by Kira Cass. The first one, The Selection, I rated 4 stars, and then I rated the second one 3 stars, The Elite, and then I rated the third one, The One. I didn't read the second series because I didn't care about the first time reading it. Might go back and reread it sometime if I want something to listen to, but I didn't care enough at the beginning of the year. I like the series. She gets on my nerves. I was reading it and I'm like, this is literally just The Bachelor, but kind of dystopian. And you know, we totally love it. Completely ate it up. But it's too problematic to give it 5. It's too problematic to give it 5 stars. Then we've got The Sea of Monsters, the second Percy Jackson book by Rick Riordan. 4 stars. The first one, I like the first series, but it's really the second series that shines for me. Listen to Your Heart by Casey West. This was a reread. 4 stars. I loved it a lot more rereading it this time though. It should honestly be 4.5 stars because I really, really liked it. But I reread these books so often and they get bumped up every time I reread them. So we'll see. For Elise by Sarah M. Eden. This one, I love that book. 4 stars. I think reading that one started me off rereading Sarah M. Eden at the beginning of this year, because I think in February I just reread the entire thing, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For Elise by Sarah M. Eden, 4 stars. I cannot remember what this book is about. Oh, that's the one that's like the 0.25 one in between the Jonquil family that has to do with the girl who marries the guy in Drops of Gold's cousin and he's married. That one is interesting. That one's interesting. That has a girl who trauma happens and then she meets her childhood best friend again and he finds her again. I shouldn't say anything more than that. It's a good story. That one though is a little bit more traumatic than most of her books. A lot of her books have like deep stuff in them, but that one made my mom cry and she's like, I can't handle any more of her books. And I'm like, Mom, they're not all that way. And she's like, I know, but this one made me so sad. The Kiss of a Stranger by Sarah M. Eden. That's the book 0.5, I guess, book 0. It's rated as book 0 in the Jonquil family series. So good. 5 stars. Still love it. It's not her best writing because it's one of the first books she wrote, but I still stand by it. It is amazing in my eyes. We've got Lucky in Love by Casey West. 5 stars. Reread. Basically, if it's a Casey West book, it's almost always a reread because her books are just the books. Her and Sarah M. Eden, I always go back to them. They're my rereads. I reread all their stuff. For them, assume it's a reread unless I tell you otherwise. Lucky in Love has to do with a girl who wins the lottery and the chaos that ensues. We've got Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I gave that one 4 stars. I like the first book. I like the series. When I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is good. Like, I enjoy it. And after it, I'm always kind of like, what was the hype? Like, I don't remember the plot points. I don't remember anything. And then when I read the series, I'm like, oh, this is good. I like it. It's interesting. It's a very interesting premise. It's basically Cinderella, but if she's a cyborg, and then there's like this lunar, like people who live on the moon, there's this whole thing with that. And then there's her sister gets sick with this infection. She's trying to save her, but the infection like is really bad. So like they don't even have a cure. It's like, there's this whole thing and it's this plot that goes with all the other books. Anyway, but 4 stars. I did enjoy that book. We've got The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan. That's the 3rd book in the series. I gave that one 4 stars. I waited so long until I got the Battle of the Labyrinth. I like waited in between reading stuff. So I waited to get the Battle of the Labyrinth. I waited like, I don't know how long it was that I had every single other book in all of them that were released before I got the 4th book in my hands. I tried to find the copy, like, and the wait time on Libby was like 5 years, not really 5 years, but like a ridiculous amount of months. And then I had a hold at the library on a copy and it was supposed to be in, but the person hadn't checked it in yet. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I owned the first 2 books at the time. I still don't own the 4th book. I just have bad luck with thrifting the 4th book apparently. But I would look at thrift stores. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I was like, I could just buy it full price online, but I didn't have a job at the time. It's kind of poor and it was like a lot of money to pay like $7 for a book at that time. And I couldn't find it. I was like, I could get the Kindle copy, but for the amount that I would get for the Kindle copy, I might as well just buy the full price book. But the shipping time for the full price book was as long as my wait at the library was supposed to be. So I was like, oh, I just won't buy it. Anyway, it took me forever to get it. But by the time I had it, I had every single other book stacked up on my shelf, ready for me to read. So I read the 4th one, rated it 5 stars. That one's really good. Just a little bit of a statistics just for funsies. In January, I read 14 books, and no, that's not right. January I read 17 books. 3 of them were new books, and 14 were rereads. Okay, now we go on to February, where I read the entire series. So we've got The Last Olympian. That's number 5 in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. 5 stars. I forgot that entire book takes place over like a day and a half, which is crazy to think about because so much stuff happens. And then we've got The Lost Hero, which is the first book in the 2nd series. Don't ask me what the 2nd series name is called. I don't remember, but I rated that one 4 stars. The Son of Neptune, 2nd book in the series, 3 stars. Mark of Athena, 3rd book, I rated that one 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed that one. But The House of Hades, my goodness, I was bawling. I was like, tears streaming down my face at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like, I loved that book. I needed to own my own copy of it because there was parts of it that I like really honestly would underline, and a line that like every time I think about it makes me want to cry. I can't cry. I have like whole video I have to film and this makeup took me forever. Oh my goodness. Okay. Literally what I wrote under this was legitimately made me feel things. Obviously. And then we went back to reading the Cinder series because I would have them on hold. So then we got Scarlet. I rated that one 3 stars. Backstory, I read the Lunar Chronicles when I was like 13 or 14 for the first time. And so I was rereading them as a full-grown adult. And the plot still holds up. Like, it makes more sense now that I was reading it because when I was younger, I don't remember what I was even paying attention to, if anything. I did enjoy them the second time through. I just can't remember anything about the series anymore. 3 stars for that one. The Blood of Olympus. Book 5 in the Heroes of Olympus series. There we go. By Rick Riordan. That one was a 5 star. That one was so good, but I think my favorite in all of them so far. Well, yeah, my favorite in all of them so far is House of Hades. Then we've got The Chalice of the Gods. That one's number 1 in the Percy Jackson, I don't remember what that one's called, Acceptance Letter series, Senior Year Adventures series. 5 stars, so cute. I love, give me more of these characters in low stakes situations where I can just see their humor, or they're not like fighting for the life. Love it, give me more, so cute. And then we have Cress, that's the 3rd book in the Lunar Chronicles by Mercer Ryer, 3 stars. And then we have Winter, the 4th book. I rated that one 4 stars? 4 stars. That one I did really enjoy. I did shed tears at the end. What is going on? Oh, my little siblings have bunk beds, and so they've been jumping from the top to the bottom. So every now and then I just hear bonk, which didn't happen before because they didn't have their bunk beds put up. So who am I to tell them not to have fun? It's kind of ruining my recording now. Anyway, Winter, I didn't really connect with the characters very much, but it is a good series. It's a good series. And then I read Fairest, which is 3.5 technically, but I read at the end, and it's like the villain origin story kind of novella. And I rated that one 2 stars. Not that it's written poorly, it just creeped me out. Because there's one thing about me that I realized this year from several books that I read from the villain's perspective. I hate being in the villain's head. It makes me feel disgusting. Because I start to think like them, or I start to like empathize with them, and then they do something terrible, and I'm like, ugh, I hate this. Okay. Anyway, also, I just like it. It looks cute. Oh, and that's all the books I read in February. In February, I read 11 books. I had read 2 new books, and I had 9 rereads. Now we get to March here. And the first book I read, this is the other one that told me I don't like villain perspectives, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, number 0 in the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. Am I excited for Sunrise on the Reaping this year? Yes, I actually am. I still need to watch The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because I watched it and I rated this one 3 stars, and honestly thinking about it, it is closer to a 5 star just from the way it made me feel. Again, it made me feel creeped out and icky, but that ending, my goodness, that ending sticks in my brain, and it just like, it's like this little brain worm where I'm like, I need to figure it out. Like, I want to know what happens, because you kind of like, you're left with a cliffhanger, which is kind of the point of the whole book, and it's the point of like the whole song that's for the movie by Olivia Rodrigo, but I'm in the trees, I'm in the breeze, my footsteps on the ground. That one that was so big. When did this come out? 2021 maybe? I don't know. I was late on the bandwagon. Anyway, it's a good book. I rated it 3 stars apparently, but then I reread Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. 5 stars. My goodness. That book has my heart, although if you want to read it, just be warned, she died before she finished the book, and so you never get a conclusion about the characters, but the show, the BBC version of the show, chef's kiss, ends it perfectly. I would recommend, if you want to read the book, then watch the movie like directly afterwards, because you'll want to know what happens, and also find a version of the book that has like the editor's afterword in it, because it kind of tells you what she was planning to do with the characters, because she was literally 1 chapter away from finishing the book when she died. I'll never get over that. Never got over it. I guess it was March where I started rereading the entirety of Sarah M. Eden's backlog, but I'll just tell you all the books that I read and the ratings really quick, because I don't need to go into the plots. They're all romance. So if I tell y'all, you're gonna know the whole plot, basically. But they're amazing. I love her books. I recommend every single one of them. Yes, every single one of them. Okay, so I was reading them in order of the series, not timeline order, which is interesting because I don't think I've ever done that before. So I read the entirety of the, the Lancaster family series first. So I read Seeking Persephone, which is number 1, rated at 5 stars. Courting Miss Lancaster, number 2, 4 stars. Loving Lieutenant Lancaster, number 4, 4 stars. Romancing Daphne, number 3. I guess, Goodreads wrote them wrongly. I read them in the right order. Just Goodreads flips books for some reason. Anyway, I read the 3rd one, Romancing Daphne, 4 stars. Loving Lieutenant Lancaster, number 4, 4 stars. Charming Artemis, my goodness, 5 stars. That book, thinking about it makes me want to cry. This is why I tell people to read this series, because specifically read this series, but the first time you read it, read them in chronological order between the books. You can find it, it's online, the order that all of the books are in chronologically, because there's 2 intersecting series. There's the Jonquil series and the Lancaster family series, and the last book in both series is the same book. I can't cry about that character right now. I don't have the time. Okay, and then I read the Jonquil family series with Friends and Foes, #1, 4 stars. Drops of Gold, 5 stars. Phenomenal book. It's also the first book I ever read by her, so if I rate it anything less than 5 stars, it feels like a desertion of my own personal values. As You Are, #3, rated that one 4 stars. A Fine Gentleman, 4 stars. That one upped itself on the reread. That one's really good. And then we have For Love or Honor, which is #5, and I rated that one 5 stars. And The Heart of a Vicar, #6, which I rated 5 stars. And after I finished reading The Heart of a Vicar, I wanted to reread Charming Artemis again, but I let myself not do that because it's so good. So good. I love that series. Recommend. Anyway, in March that month, I read 13 books, 1 new book, and 12 rereads. All right, now we get to April. And April always makes me think of Anne of Green Gables. And so that is what I read. I read Anne of Green Gables, #1, 5 stars. Actually, I'll just tell you all of them. They're all 5 stars. So I read Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island. Oh, and then I read a Sarah Meaden book in between. The Best Intentions, 5 stars. So good. Unenchanted. Oh, I read so many books in between because I was waiting for Libby hold times because I was in my audiobook listening era. I remember. Okay, so I read Unenchanted by Chan Do-han. I rated this one 3 stars. I read this series. It's the Unfortunate Fairy Tale series or something like that. I read it when I was like 13, 14, and I was just there for the romance. And let me tell you, on the reread, the romance is gone. There's nothing of substance in those later books. The second book was okay. That one's Fairest. I rated that one 3 stars. And then from there, it just went downhill. Fable, I rated that one 2 stars. And then we hop back into the Anne of Green Gables series with Anne of Windy Poplars with 5 stars. Then I read another book that I picked up at, I think it was DI. I picked it up at DI called Firelight by Sophie Jordan. It's the first book in the series. I rated this one 3 stars. It's like a dragon shifter series, fall in love kind of a thing. It's not very good. I think I would have liked it more if I read it when I was a teenager. But now that I'm older, I'm like, what is going on with all? It kind of felt like a fever dream, that whole series. And then we had The Poisoner's Enemy by Jeff Wheeler. I waited for probably a literal year on the Libby holds to get this book because here's a little backstory with me and Jeff Wheeler. I love him. He's one of my favorite authors in the entire world, but my library does not have all of his books. And let me tell you, he's a prolific writer. So I have read, I think 15 or 16 of his books, and that's not even like half of all of them. And I need to read all of them. It is like, it's a need. Oh, it's a need. It's a need. Anyway, I desperately need to read all of them. And so I was waiting on Libby for this book, which I could not access anywhere else. And when I finally did get it, 5 stars. It's a prequel to the King Fountain series, which I also haven't read. And I really am excited to read those books, because they're all on my TBR and I'm so excited to get to them eventually. Anyway, I rated that one 5 stars. It was really, really good. And then we have Lonely Hearts Day by Sarah M. Eden, and oh my goodness, that book, I finished it because it's a novella, and I immediately started rereading the last chapter because it made me feel things. I love Sarah M. Eden's books, but something about that novella, it touched my soul. It became me. Oh, it was so cute. I wish she has a physical copy of it because I would buy it and I would reread it every single Valentine's Day. I need to rebuy the Kindle copy because I changed Amazon accounts because my Amazon account was being dumb. And I forgot that when you delete your Amazon account, you delete all of your Kindles. So I deleted a lot of books accidentally, but I need to rebuy it and read it this month because I'm so excited. Can you tell? Can you tell? Is it obvious? Anyway, 5 stars. So good. The plot of that one is that, well, I guess the summary? What is it called? The blurb? I don't remember what it's called. Is that a girl hosts a party for people to go to on Valentine's Day where you don't have to bring a date because there's a big popular party in town with the popular kids and you have to bring a date and it's Valentine's Day party, everyone goes to that party. So she's like, no, I'm gonna host my own party. And then The chaos that ensues. So it follows her through high school and every single year at that Valentine's Day party. It's so good. I need to reread it. I'm actually so excited. I can read it. I told myself I cannot start reading all of the books I've been really wanting to read for Valentine's Day until February because I hate February. So I have to make February a little bit more exciting for myself. Anyway, next we read Rain, which is the 4th book in the Unenchanted series by Chandahan. Rated that one 2 stars. I didn't tell you a single bit of the plot of that series. Anyway, so the kind of the idea of that is that she is cursed with like the Grimm curse, and so she has to go defeat these fairy tale things, but then there's this whole plot with this brother and this and that and this and that. Anyway, it shapes up to be a really interesting series. And if she'd done some things correctly, it would have been so good. And when I was younger, for some reason, all the plot holes went straight over my head. All the things that made her a little bit kind of weird, straight over my head. Rereading it, I could not focus on anything else. Anyway, 2 stars for that book. We've got The Best Laid Plans, which is the Point 5 and the Huntresses series by Sarah Meaden. 4 stars. I was rereading them to get to the new one, which I don't remember if I read this month or a different month. But that one's 4 stars. I don't remember the plot of that book, but it's a good book. All of her books are good. We've got Once and For All by Sarah Dessen. What is this book about? See, here we go to the first book. I don't remember at all. Oh, okay. So I was trying to find a new author that gives off the same vibe as Casey West. Still haven't found one. A little bit. Actually, I kind of found one, but that's later in the year. Anyway, I'm kind of bummed about that. So I read a bunch of books by this bunch of different authors to try to find one that I really enjoyed. And so I read, what was it? Once and For All by Sarah Dessen. That one is like a plot about a girl who works in the wedding industry and something about like meeting a boy at the beach, maybe. I don't remember. It was kind of complicated, but that one did have swearing in it, and it had a lot of innuendo or straight up sex, and not sex implied, but just like, yeah, she had sex with a guy. It's not like a sex scene. But anyway, that one was interesting. I think I gave it, Once and For All, I gave that one 2 stars, yeah. I didn't really enjoy it. And then I read the last book. So this one took me forever to get through this series because I was getting so annoyed and so grumpy at reading them that I would like put it on and then I would just be like the whole time listening to it. So I finally got through the entire series. Rated the last one Forever by Chandahan, 1 star. I wrote, I'll just keep my sunshiny view on these books for my teenage brain when I read them, or just when I think about them, because my goodness, that ending. I liked the ending when I was younger. Now I'm like, you're such a jerk. She was so horrible. Oh, and I think about it more. Anyway, we're not thinking about that anymore. Okay, then I read The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. This was the first book in the series. I rated it 4 stars. I think it was like I feel like it was a book where she had was it a fake dating trope? Oh, it's basically, what's it called? That really popular book talk one. That's, I did enjoy it. What is it called? Better Than the Movies. It's basically Better Than the Movies, but trauma, I guess? Anyway, it was fine. I rated it 4 stars because it was better than the other books I've been reading lately. I think if I got back on it, it would be like a 3.5, maybe. I don't know. It was fine. It did have swearing in it. And then I read the second book in the series, The Map from Here to There, which has the same couple that ends up in the first book, but just like relationship problems as they always do in the sequel. It was not good. I rated it 2 stars. That one's really dumb. Then we've got Anne's House of Dreams, 5 stars. So good. The Widow's Fate by Jeff Wheeler. This is the second book in the series that I can only get access to from Libby, and I rated that one 5 stars. It was really good. I need to get my hands on the rest of the series because they only had the first 2 on Kindle. Not on Kindle, on Libby. They only had the first 2, and I don't understand why. It's kind of getting on my nerves because I can't get access to them literally anywhere else, and I'd have to buy them, and it's $20 a book, and there's 3 more books in the series. Anyway, then I reread Sunkissed by Casey West. I gave this one 4 stars. This one's like, apparently it's a Dirty Dancing retelling, kind of. I've never seen Dirty Dancing, so I couldn't tell you, but it's really cute. I really like that one. It has a girl who goes to summer camp, and she basically just tries to figure out her life. So in March, I read 20 books. I read 7 new books, and I reread 13 books. Now we're on to May. So the first book I read is The City of Ember by Jan Duprow. That one I rated 4 stars. My boyfriend recommended it to me. So basically it's about a bunch of people who live in a town and there's interesting things going on. I just realized if I told you what I knew, I would be completely spoiling it for you. So can't tell you that part, but it's really good. It's, I think, more middle grade or YA. Now we have Anne of Ingleside, number 6 by Ella Montgomery, 5 stars. The People of Sparks, which is the second book in the series by Jan Duprow. I rated that one also 4 stars. That follows the events of the first book. Can't tell you much more because it's a sequel, but I did really enjoy it. I need to finish the series. I think there's only like 1 or 2 more books, but I just like started reading other things and then I forgot about it. So I'll get around to it eventually. Then I read The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. I rated this one 5 stars. This one's a little bit more like if you were reading Grimm's fairy tales when you're younger, kind of that like old-fashioned writing, but like a full-length novel. It was really cute. I did really enjoy it. I think there might be a sequel, maybe. I need to read more about that author though, because I really did enjoy it. Then we have Rainbow Valley, number 7 by Ella Montgomery, 5 stars. Then we got These Violent Delights, which is the first one in the Something series, Something Duology by Chloe Gong. I rated that one 4 stars. I read it because Rachel Catherine, I knew, read it at one point. I did enjoy it. It's like a Romeo Juliet kind of a thing, but that one does have swearing in it. Then we have There You'll Find Me by Jenny B. Jones. Okay, that one was actually okay. It was clean, it was cute, it was a YA rom-com. It had a really good premise of a girl goes to a town because she's filming a movie, I think, or something like that. I don't remember. And she's staying at like this foster family, or is she filming a movie, or I don't remember. She goes to a foreign country and is staying at a foster family. I don't remember why she's in the foreign country. It was a good book. It had good morals. It gave me anxiety because she has anxiety, and that was not a good thing for me to be reading at the time. So I rated it 3.75 stars. Then we have The British Isles Collection by Sarah M. Eden, 4 stars. Don't remember what was in that novel. It's like a collection of short stories. I don't remember what any of them were, but it's Sarah M. Eden, so I'm gonna rate it good. The only reason it's not 5 stars is because they're not full-length books, but they were cute. Rilla of Ingleside by Ella Montgomery, and I might cry thinking about it. 5 stars, like always. Please read that series and read the last book if you ever do, because you get to know the characters so intimately. You get to know Anne as she grows up and who she marries and her kids, and then eventually the last books you get to like focus more on her kids and them as they grow up. It just makes me so happy and so sad at the same time. Anyway, can't think about that. Now we have Our Violin Ends, number 2 by Chloe Gong. Now, I rated this one 2 stars, I think mostly because I read the first one as a physical book and I listened to the second one as an audiobook, and I think that changed my experience for me because I liked reading it and I didn't enjoy listening to it. So maybe I would have enjoyed it more listening to it, but I think it would have only been like 3 stars because I don't know, there was a lot of things that I was like, why is this happening? I don't understand. Why are you making these decisions? It's like gangs and stuff, because it's always like some sort of a gang when you do a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And I think that's just not my vibe, and I think I just need to stay away from Romeo and Juliet retellings. Then we have Cotillion by Georgette Heyer. I rated this one 5 stars. This is the first book by them that I've ever read. I don't remember how in the world I came across it, but it has to do with a girl who has to marry someone to receive her inheritance, I think. And so she has a fake dating with this one guy so she can make someone else jealous. It was cute, but it's written in like, I guess how I described it before is you have Jane Austen language right here, and then you have modern day Regency romance where it's like easier to understand. This was like kind of in the middle. It was written in like 1960 or 40, one of the two, something like that. So it's like a little bit older fashion-y writing, but it's not quite as hard to understand as Jane Austen, but it is really interesting. I do want to read more of her books. Then we have The Best of Friends by Sarah M. Eden. This was a new read for me this year because it was the one, I think the first book she came out with this year or earlier last year, something like that. 5 stars. So cute. I think her name's Dahlia. She was so cute, and I really, really, really loved. I don't remember who in the world she was paired with, but I liked that character. I really like the way she solved the problem at the end of the book, because I honestly, because some of the books you're kind of like, yeah, duh, this is gonna happen, but this one, like, I honestly didn't see it coming, and it was really good. Then we have Christmas Forevermore by a bunch of different authors, but the one I read it for was Sarah M. Eden. This was a novella collection with Christmas stories. Really liked it. Really cute. I will read Christmas novellas, Christmas anthologies for my entire life if Sarah M. Eden is in them. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I rated this one 3 stars. This one has swearing and all the stuff in it, by the way, just so you know. Throne of Glass is not clean. That series is not clean. I don't think any of Sarah J. Maas's stuff is clean. just so you know. I understand why people like this series. I read more than just Throne of Glass, by the way. I'm just giving you kind of like my thoughts right now. I understand why people like this series. I don't know if it's for me, but I'm going to keep reading it. I'm only halfway through right now. We have The Heart of Hampton House by Anita Stansfield. This is the first book by her I read this year, and I rated it 1 star. Why in the world are there so many words to describe things that don't matter? And there are no words for the parts that are actually interesting? And why are the paragraphs this long? And why is the dialogue this small? Like, why can you just, oh my goodness. And then why in the world was that the love story you chose and you didn't have any way to solve the conflict other than the main character giving up her sense of morality? Why? Not really morality, but just like her sense, I guess it is morality, honestly. And the main guy is so dumb. Anyway, I hated that book. I can legitimately say I hated that book. Okay, we have Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. I rated this one 4 stars. So I read so many Marissa Meyer's books this year. Why? I have no idea, but I did. And this is one of my favorite ones I read. I have another one I liked better, but this one was one of my favorite ones. I don't remember when it came out. It must have been a recent release because I remember seeing it before, but it's kind of magical realism a little bit, but it follows a girl who gets the ability to put karma on anyone she wants for basically like a summer-ish. And she's grumpy at her lab partner in school because she basically was going to get like a B in the class because of this last final report that he refused to collaborate with her on the way that she wanted to collaborate with it. So basically she manages to finagle her way into getting a redo on the assignment during the summer so she can get her straight A's. And chaos ensues. It's really cute though. I really like that book. Then we have Bargaining for the Barrister by Aneka R. Walker. This one I rated 3 stars. I need to read more of this series. I actually really did enjoy it. I guess this year I just kind of read a bunch of books by a bunch of different authors and then I never went back to them because there's a lot of authors actually that I want to read more of their books from last year that I just like didn't read anymore this year. But this one I did enjoy. I don't remember a single thing about that series or that book. But I remember like decently enjoying it, and I remember I wasn't annoyed by anything. I think it just didn't blow me away. Now we have Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. I rated this one 3 stars. I don't remember exactly what I liked about it, and I don't remember exactly what I hated about it. I think I liked the magic system. I liked the main... Oh, that's it. I didn't really like the main character. Makes sense. Then we have Landmore by Jeff Wheeler. I told y'all, I love Jeff Wheeler. He's one of my favorite authors. This book is not that great. I rated it 3 stars. I think it is the first book that he ever wrote. This and Silverkin were the first books he'd ever written. And they're a good idea. They're a really good idea. I really enjoyed the world. Like, I actually think about the world rather often. And I want to know where he would go with the series if he either rewrote those books or he kept writing the series. Because his writing now is really, really, really good. It is heads and tails over what this is. It's just not as good as other books. So if you want to read his books, I do not recommend starting there. I say read them if you want to. Know that they're not as good as his other books. Just keep getting that out there for you. There are glimpses of his signature writing style in it. It's just not as good. Anyway, that one has to do with basically an elf is kind of how I was picturing him, that believes that his way of seeing the world is right, and he has to go on the hero's journey to figure out that he was wrong. And then there's a plot, but I don't remember what it is anymore. Now we have Swimming in a Sea of Stars by Julie Wright. 5 stars. The reason I like this book so much is because it reminds me of my favorite book, Yearbook by Ali Condi. It's good on its own right, though. I would recommend it. It follows... Basically, the idea of the story is your actions affect people in ways that you cannot expect, and it follows a bunch of different characters over a single day in high school. It's really, really good. I actually really recommend it. I want to own that book. I love Julie Wright. I need to reread a lot of her books. Then we have The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. 5 stars. This was a controversial 5-star for me because this is Brandon's book that has the most swearing in it. Just putting that out there, there's swearing in this book. But it makes sense for the character, and it makes sense in the context of the plot, and so I kind of not let it slide, but I'm kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, I really enjoy this. It follows a guy who goes into an alternate reality and doesn't remember who he is, and he has to, like, figure out what's going on. It's really interesting. I did really enjoy it. You have to get through the first couple chapters to, like, get into it, because it's definitely like a bam, because you're experiencing the same way he does. He doesn't remember anything. You don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. So it's kind of hard to get into it, but it is really good once you do. We've got Nothing Left to Lose, the 6th book in the I Am Not a Serial Killer series by Dan Wells. 5 stars. Okay, I read this series in college and I loved it. It is not my typical cup of tea. It is definitely, they're thrillers, they're dark, they're creepy, they're gory, they're like definitely gruesome. Not typically what I love, but I love his writing. His writing is so interesting and I need to read more by him this year. But I read the first 5 books and I didn't know there was any more. I thought that the ending of the 5th book was the ending of the entire series. And so I've been thinking about this book, like, so sad. I was like, I wish there was more. Like, and then I looked on, what is it called? Goodreads, because this was around the time that I was making my Goodreads for the first time. And I saw that there was another book in the series and I was like, wait, seriously? So I immediately went over to good old trusty Libby, and I downloaded the book and I read it from like my Kindle app, and that book, it's not quite the same as the other ones, but for me, it was exactly what I needed to feel resolved with the character and his growth and just the series in general. So good. I really, really recommend that series, by the way. He's probably the only author I will ever read thrillers from. Let's just say that. Then we have Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I rated this 3.5 stars because I did not realize that it was a villain origin story. Okay? I was so hoping there was going to be a happy ending. I was like, yes, please give me the happy ending. Like, I want to see this character have like a happy story instead of a sad story. No, it was a sad story. Brilliantly written. I just was so grumpy at the end of it that I rated it 3.5 stars. It's probably deserves closer to like a 4.5 star, because it was written very, very well. Marissa Meyer knows how to write. It made me grumpy. The ending made me grumpy. Okay, so in what was this? In May, I read 23 books. 20 of them were new books, and 3 of them were rereads. Now we've got June. The first book, starting off strong with Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. 5 stars. There was a part in the book where I literally had to be like, okay, Brain, you're reading too fast. We don't understand what's going on. Flipped back 2 chapters, started reading very slowly to understand what was going on because there was too much world building and magic shifting happening before my eyeballs and I could not understand, but it's so good. I really recommend that one. That is probably one of the most prominent love stories I think I've ever seen Brandon Sanderson write, because he has love stories through most of his books, or maybe all of his books have a love story in them, but that one is a love story. Then we have Gilded by Marissa Meyer. I'll just talk about Gilded and Cursed at the same time. The first one I rated 2 stars, and Cursed I gave 1 star. I should have DNF'd them, but I was so interested in her world building, because her world building is always so interesting. But the decisions she made with that character, they just were questionable. Okay, so the premise of this story is that it's basically Rumpelstiltskin, just retelling. There's gods that live in the world, and the gods are very real and they interact with humans in a way, and there's this whole like kind of, I thought of it as a headless horseman, but it's not really, but it's like a demon that, or a devil, or Satan himself, I couldn't really tell what was going on, that rides out on a certain day and he kidnaps children or people that are out during that day and then takes them back, and either they die or I don't remember, it's this whole thing. Anyway, so they're living in like this kind of bleak world. I don't know, she like interacts with someone during one day and she says that she can turn straw into gold so they don't kill her, but then there's this whole thing about like her being, I don't know, it's this whole thing. It was interesting, it was genuinely interesting, but the character herself made so many questionable decisions. I had no idea what was going on the entire time in her brain, because she would like say one thing and then she'd just be like, actually no, I want to do this, and I'm like, where was the character motivation? Where was that in any of this? And both books could have been 1 book. Easily could have been 1 book. I didn't enjoy it. Anyway, I didn't enjoy it. It was not good. Marissa Meyer, most of her stuff is alright. Those 2 were not good. Don't read those books. Okay. And then we have Crown of Midnight, which is number 2 in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. 3.5 stars. I cannot separate the books from one another, so I don't remember what happens in that book, but it was slightly better than the first one in my eyes. Then we have Dealing with Dragons, number 1 by Patricia C. Reed. This was 4 stars. I really enjoyed this series. My boyfriend recommended it to me because his recommendations are spot on. Anytime he tells me a book is good and I read it, I'm like, I rate it like 3 stars or higher. I don't think I've rated anything lower than that he's recommended to me. They're really, really good. That series has to do with a princess who is sick of being a princess, and so she's like, where can I go so my parents can stop trying to marry me to people? And she's like, well, dragons have princesses, so I should just go find a dragon that needs a princess, and then people will stop bugging me to get married. And so she goes and lives with this dragon, and then stuff ensues. It's really cute. I like that series. Then we have Cursed, which I already talked about. Then we have My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This book, my goodness, I should have DNF'd it immediately after I realized several key details, but I gave it 2.5 stars because I had to see where that train wreck was going, and boy did it train wreck. Do I remember the plot? No, I just remember that there's no, it's like voyeurism in a novel, but like she does end up getting with the guy. I don't know. It was so dumb, and the plot was so dumb, and I don't even know why I read that book. Okay, then we have Searching for Dragons, the second book in the Dealing with Dragons series by Patricia C. Reed. 5 stars. 5 stars. Loved the characters. Loved it all. Loved the ending. Made me cry. Good book. We have An Unlikely Pair by Tracy Hunter Abramson. That one's technically the first book in the series. I did not care enough to keep reading it. It was 3 stars for me. It could have been much better if they just had done something different in the middle. I don't remember exactly what I was thinking because I read this like, I don't know, half a year ago. So I don't remember anything about this book except that it is a skating romance where a girl gets drafted into basically a pair because he needs someone to skate with him because his partner moving or something. I don't remember. He needs someone to skate with him, so she gets drafted into skating, and it becomes a romance. But there was just parts of it that were like completely to the point where I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I cannot believe that it's possible. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it would have been better if it just, I don't know. I don't remember most of what my thoughts were about that book. Okay, then we have A Proper Scoundrel by Esther Hatch. This is the first book in the Proper Scoundrel series. I cannot wait to continue the series. These are my guilty pleasures. I rated this one 3.5 stars because it wasn't quite my favorite, but her writing tickles something in my brain. Her books are a lot more lusty, and they're a lot more like, and then he touched me and tingles went up my back, which is not my favorite. Don't really enjoy it, but her writing is just so fun, and I love her plots, and I love her characters. It just, yeah. Anyway, then we have An Unlikely Match by Sarah M. Eden. This is one of her only books that were like previous books that I had never read before because it is a love story between a dude and a ghost that's haunting his house. I did not think I was going to enjoy this book, but I rated it 4.25 stars. It was really, really good, actually. I recommend it. Then we have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And here's where I started my reread, and that is where my reading just went down for the year because those books are tomes. They're huge. They're like thousands of pages. So the rest of everything else I was reading kind of went on the back burner, but I rated that one 5 stars. It's good. We have A Proper Charade, which is the second one in Proper Scoundrel series by Esther Hatch. I rated that one 3 stars. Don't remember the plot. Don't ask me. So in June, I ended up reading 12 books, and 1 was a reread and 11 were new books. Now we have July. All right, and the first one I read is Tuesdays at the Castle by Jessica DeGeorge. I found that at the thrift store, and it's one of the only books by Jessica DeGeorge I hadn't read, and I think I didn't read them because I felt like they were for a much, much younger audience, but I actually really enjoyed it. Was it for a younger audience? Yes, but my goodness, that world building, her world building never disappoints. I love her books. That one has to do with a girl who I think is the youngest daughter of a king, and like her living in a castle, and the castle's literally alive. Really cute. I really liked that book. I need to continue the series because it left off on a really big cliffhanger, and I just didn't have the second book on hand, and then I just didn't think to continue the series because that's what happens with every single book, basically this entire year. So now we have Silverkin by Jeff Wheeler. This is the second book. It took me so long to get to this book because I was so burnt out by reading Landmore, and it took me forever to get through Silverkin because I would start reading it and I would zone out. Like, I would not even pay attention. One time I was listening to it, fell asleep, woke up, knew exactly what was going on because he would just repeat plot points over and over and over again to the point that I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. You told us like already. Anyway, that one was a story. 3 stars because it's still a good story. It just was so overly complicated. Anyway, we have Calling on Dragons. I need water. All right. Now, oh, my My voice sounds so much better. I just needed water, apparently. Okay, now I have Calling on Dragons by Patricia C. Reed. This is the third book. I really enjoy the series, but the third book is kind of when it starts not being the lighthearted fun I liked. You kind of see it starting from the beginning. Like, there's an entire plot point that has to happen, and they kind of set it up in this book. Apparently, she did not want to write the prequels. She just wanted to write the last book in the series, and so the rest of the books kind of appeared because everyone wanted to know everything else in the series, basically. So, or like her publishers were like, hey, to write this book you really need to set up all this stuff first, and so she just wanted to write that last story. And you can kind of see it because the rest of the books don't really fit the tonal of the last book, because the tone in the last book is very different to the tone in the first books, but I really like all of them. So Calling on Dragons was 4 stars for me. The Dreaming Beauty by Aneka R. Walker. Apparently I have read books by her. This one was like, I think it was a Sleeping Beauty retelling, kind of, maybe. It just didn't, I don't know. I kept feeling like it was going to have magic in it, and it never did. And I thought it was going to. I thought it was kind of hinting at it. Never did. Kind of wish it did. It might have made it better. It was interesting. It was a Regency romance. Nothing much more to say about that. Then we have The Traitor's Kiss by Erin Beatty. Now, I read that book when I was 13, 14, and I told myself, you can't read the rest of the series because it had like a lot more detailed stuff in it that I never read before, and I was like, no, I cannot finish the series. I rated it 3.5 stars because I remember it being really interesting when I read it the first time, but I was just there for the romance that was there. But on the reread, they're kind of toxic, honestly. Like, why? And the plot was okay. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. Anyway, we have The Convenient Marriage by Georgette Heyer. I rated this one 3 stars. Oh, this one has to do with the girl marrying a guy because he wanted to marry her sister, and her sister didn't want to marry him, and she's like, hey, I'll marry you instead because no one's gonna marry me because I'm ugly and dumb and I stutter. And he's like, all right, sure. And then stuff happens, and that series has glorified cheating in it, basically. And I should not have enjoyed that book as much as I did because her writing's really good. I rated it 3 stars, but just so you know, that one, I don't know, that one's not as good as the other one I read. Anyway, we've got The Celebration by Wanda E. Brunstetter. All right, backstory time. My boyfriend found this series of books called The Amish Cooking Classes at the thrift store, and he gave them to me when I was at college, and I was reading the first one to him. First one was fine. It was just like, it's just one of those books where you have all these characters and they all meet at one certain place, and then you see their lives through the rest of the week, and then stuff happens, and then everything all kind of gets resolved by the end of the book. It was fine. The first book was fine. The second book was kind of but it was fine. Third book would have been the same, except, my goodness, that stupid, there was this one character, the only character I ever cared about in the entire book, and that one character had the worst husband in the whole world, and her plot line was that her husband, like, and her were separated because he'd done stuff to hurt her, because he had actually basically cheated on her, and she'd been like, actually no, boundaries, you move out. Her plot line was her like learning how to forgive him and like doing stuff for the good of her children, and his little plot line was, I hate living by myself, I hate having to cook and clean, I want to move back in with my wife because I don't want to cook stuff anymore. He never does anything because he actually cares about his wife, cares about the people he's supposed to be helping, or he wants to like make himself better as a person. No, he doesn't do anything for actually the good reasons. And so at the end of the book, I literally tore that page of their restitution out of the book and I burned it because I was really, 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 really mad at it. Anyway, that was a little bit dramatic of me, but anyway, I rated that one 2 stars. It was dumb. 2 stars because the rest of the book was decently fine, but that one tanked it 3 stars. All right, now we've got Talking Dragons by Patricia C. Reed. That's the 4th book in the series. See, I rated it 4.5 stars. It's still a really good book, but why in the world did they name him? What is his name? Daystar? Ugh, I don't understand. She could have named him so many other good things. Like, the rest of the books have really good names, really decent names. They make sense. Daystar? For a boy? Like, I get it if it's like supposed to be symbolic of a thing that happens in the book. That kind of makes sense. But like, for a boy? Like, a girl might have been like, yeah, Daystar maybe. But a boy? I don't know. It just, I don't know. And then the tonal shift also changes because you don't have the normal character that's your like viewpoint of the series. It's from Daystar's perspective. So it's like, okay, why? And then it's also like, that book would have been better if you didn't already know what was happening in the rest of the books up to it, if you kind of uncovered it with him. But the rest of the books up to it are so good that it's like, why would I not read those and then read, I don't know, it just felt different from the rest of the series, but still 4.5 stars because it was a good book. Then we have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I think the first time I read that book, I read an abridged copy that did not include all of the politics in it because I don't remember the book being so long. It was like a 16-hour audiobook or something like that. It was really, really, really long. I still rated it 4 stars because it was good, but I did not enjoy the love story quite as much as when I read it the first time. But I need to watch the BBC movie of it again because, oh my goodness, that was swoon worthy. So good. Now we have Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. 3 stars. I don't even want to get into my complaints because there's whole videos on me talking about those books. Anyway, we have The Hidden Prince by Tessa Afshar. That one I rated 3 stars. It was just a random book I picked up from the library. Thought it looked interesting. It was like a biblical set story. And it's about like a girl who gets put into the right places to do things at the right time that she's supposed to do. And it's supposed to be the story about like acknowledging God's hand in your life and stuff like that, which would have been totally fine if it wasn't boring. So 3 stars. We have Lakeshore Park by Megan Walker. That one I gave 3 stars. What was the plot of that book? Oh, okay. That one had to do with a girl who lives in an abusive situation with her younger sister and her uncle. They're living with her uncle in an abusive situation, basically. And when it comes to a point where she can go to a house party, she's like, all right, I got to get my sister married off. I need to get her to a safe place. I need to get married off. Like, one of us has to get married so we can provide for the other person, basically, because her uncle is at the point where he's going to die and leave them penniless, or just like if they go back, it's not going to be good. So stuff happens. And I remember reading it and being really interested in liking it, but the ending, the conclusion just didn't feel concluded enough. It just felt too, not Deus Ex Machina, where it just kind of like happens out of nowhere, because there was, you could like tell it was happening. It just did not feel very satisfying. And then I read Miss Newberry's List by Megan Walker right after, and I rated that one 4 stars. I don't remember the plot of that one either. I remember reading this book. I remember a lot of stuff that happens. I don't remember the ending. I rated it 4 stars because I liked it better than the other one, but I remember the other one better than this one. I remember liking her books. I don't know. I might need to read more by her because I remember liking her writing style. I don't know. I don't remember anything about this book apparently. But apparently I liked the couple because I wrote it down. Okay, now we have Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle. I actually found the whole series at the library. Well, as far as the series has been released, I think there's 3 books, and I read the first one and I was just like, I don't care. It's about 2 girls who are both princesses, and they're separated at birth, and then the stuff that happens after that. I don't really like giving a full-on synopsis because it like ruins a whole lot of the first part of the book. Anyway, it was fine. I just did not care. And I know the series like kind of goes down because all the reviews that I saw, people were like, yeah, I like the first book, and then I just like didn't care after that. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not going to keep reading it. Then we have The Traitor's Ruin by Erin Beatty. This is, what book was this? Oh, okay. That's the series I was reading from the book that I read. I think it's called like The Traitor's Circle is the series. This follows the book that I read when I was younger, and then I never read the rest of the series, and I always wanted to know what happened. It was fine. It was 3 stars. It kind of gets into a ton of like political machinations, and then she also like throws stuff in the wrench for the couple constantly, and then like it just, the couple's so toxic. I never believed that they were actually fine. Ever. And then I finished my read of The Doctrine and Covenants. And then I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab. That book was actually really good. It was darker than I usually like, but it was very interesting to read. 4 stars. That one follows basically 2 boys who try to give themselves superpowers, and then the stuff that happens after that. We've got The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by May Ann Schaffer. I generally don't really like reading World War II books, but this book was a World War II book that made me actually really enjoy it. It follows a girl who's trying to find her next, not hit, but her next thing to write about, her next thing that's going to give her like the satisfaction of like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. And she discovers that there is this island where these people went through stuff, and she's like, we never, like, no one's ever documented this. Like, I'm so interested. And so she starts not texting, but she sends telegrams and letters to the people on the island, like, hey, like, if you want to, I'm gonna try to write this book. Do you have any, like, newspapers? Do you want to tell me your stories? And so she makes this, like, good friendship with them, and then the story unfolds. It's really, really sweet. I really enjoyed that book. And my college roommate told me to read it when I was in college. So Lily, I read it. You're welcome. Now we have The Sunlit Man, which is on Goodreads. It's listed as 5.5 of the Stormlight Archive, and after reading the Stormlight Archive, I am even more confused after reading the last book in the Stormlight Archives. I'm even more confused than I was when I read it, so that's fun. But I rated that one 5 stars. It was really good. That one follows a character you meet in Stormlight, not gonna tell you who basically, Brandon described it as wanting to write a Western story where basically you have the main character is kind of rough around the edges, and he has to save this town from whatever's befalling them, and then at the end, it's like the cowboy rides off into the sunset kind of a thing. So it's kind of that vibe, but he goes in, saves these people. Anyway, I shouldn't tell you more. It ruins stuff. Anyway, we've got The Ear, the Eye, and the Arm by Nancy Farmer. This one I rated 4 stars. It follows, it's like simultaneously like less civilized and more civilized. It's like in the future in Africa, where these children are kept in their house and they're like, we're done with being in our house all day. We want to leave the house. And their dad's like, no, you have to stay in the house because I know that it's not safe out there. And it basically follows them going out of the house and realizing it's not safe out there. It was interesting. I don't know. It was more of a boy book than I liked. My boyfriend recommended it to me. So that was all the books I read in July. And I read 20 books total. 17 were new, 3 were rereads. Then we're on to August. Saw air and the rust on your door. The first book I read was A Proper Scoundrel by Esther Hatch. This is the 3rd book in the series. I think that's the latest one out so far. I was so close to rating it 5 stars because I loved the couple. Oh my goodness. The banter. Top tier. I loved the fact that it wasn't the usual trope that's thrown in there, and it's like she like genuinely like tells them straight out what she wants. It was such a breath of fresh air. I loved that. It's like a fake dating scenario. It was so good. Oh my goodness. Ugh. I need to reread that one. Oh, I love that one. Then I reread Ella by Jessalyn Stewart Peasley. I read this when I was a kid, and it's basically when I think of the Cinderella story and Cinderella retellings I love, I think of this book. It is so good. I rated it 4.5 stars on the reread. No, 4.75 stars on the reread because after rereading all of the books, it's my least favorite of all of the books, but I still love it. I think I don't like it as much because Ella is so traumatized at the beginning. It's kind of hard to read from her perspective, but it's still so good. And then I read the 3rd book in the Treader's Circle series by Erin Beatty. I rated this one 3 stars. It was fine. You kind of see where it's coming, and it's like boring at the same time. I don't know. It's just political machinations are only interesting if I care about the characters, and I did not care about the characters. Then I read Ella's Will by Jessalyn Stewart Peasley. This is the 2nd book in the series, although you can technically read either one of them first, but it's more fun if you read Ella first. 5 stars. At Will, the Man You Are. Every time I read that, I'm just like in awe of how good of a person he is. And then we have Always Ella, the stepmother story by Jessalyn Stewart Peasley. This is the one that came out. This is what made me reread them, was because I did not know there was a 3rd book in the series. And at first I was like, I will not read anything from the stepmother's perspective. I would rather die than read something from the perspective of the stepmother. And then I was like, actually, I really like her writing, and none of her books have ever made me unhappy after reading them, so I'm gonna read it anyway. And I'm so glad I did because I rated it 5 stars, and it was 5 stars for the last 30% of the book. Anyway, it's really good. Drat. I thought about the ending of the book and now I might cry again. Anyway. Then I read All's Fair in Love, War in High School by Jeanette Rallison. I've read a lot of her books too, really enjoy them. This one's like I don't remember exactly what the plot is of this one, but it follows a character who gets a really good character arc through the book. And she's kind of like insufferable at the beginning, and then she's like way better at the end of the book. And I really enjoy books like that, and that's why I rated it as high as I did. It can't be like quite up super high because there's other books with the same plot that I enjoy better, but I did really enjoy it. That one's more of like middle grade. Then we have The Roses of Feldstone by Esther Hatch. This is the author that wrote the Proper Scoundrel series. Wait, I have to look up what that one's about. Oh, okay. This book I thought was gonna go way differently than it did. I rated it 4 stars because I did still enjoy it, but there were some major things that I felt like could have really improved improved the book a lot. Like, I just felt like the main character was so oblivious to her own feelings that it was kind of annoying, which is basically always true, but it was especially annoying in this book. It was still good. You were good. You weren't great. Then we have Highcliffe House by Megan Walker. I think these two authors, I read like a lot of their books because I did enjoy them, and I was trying to find like a new author that it was a 5-star author for me. And I think I enjoyed this one a lot, but I didn't like love it because of, I can't remember exactly why, but there was something that was like kind of off-putting from it for me, but I did really like it. I think that one has to do with like a enemies to lovers, forced proximity, but I don't remember much else. Then we have Vanish by Sophie Jordan. So I did not like the first book in this series, but then I owned the second one, so I was like, well, fine, I'll read it. And then I didn't have the third one, so it was kind of like, where in the world can I find a third one? My local library had it. So I forced myself to finish the series, and I'm glad I did, but it was just fine. I rated them all 3 stars in the series. Then we have Rule Number 1, You Can't Date the Coach's Daughter by Anne Marie Meyer. This one had so much potential for being good, but I rated it 2 stars because, my goodness, nothing made any sense. No character motivations made sense. She liked him because he was hot, and that's it. He didn't like her at all. I did not believe that he liked her at all. I think he just liked her because she was unattainable, and that's it. Plus the plot was dumb. And anyway, that's about it. I reread Places We've Never Been by Casey West. 5 stars. The first time I read that book, I was not in the right mental state to read it because the tropes in it were too close to stuff that was going on in my own life. It follows a girl who goes forced to go on a road trip with her mom and her mom's best friend and her mom's best friend's kids, and they were all friends when they were young. Like, all the children were friends when they were young, but then they were separated because the families moved apart. And so she's getting back, meeting her old best friend for the first time since like they're like what, 11 or something like that, and now they're like 16, 17, thinking about college and stuff like that. 17, 18, thinking about college. And she meets her friend, and her friend doesn't want to talk to her, and she doesn't know why. So good. I loved that book. It makes me want to cry thinking about it. Kiki's Delivery Service by Aiko Kadano. This one's 5 stars. I've watched the movie billions of times, but I never read the book, and it was totally worth it. And I think that month was the first month I did a wrap up. So from here on, I'm going to be a little bit more brief. That was August. So in August, I read 13 books total. 10 were new, 3 were rereads. Now we're into September. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Now we have Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This one I rated 3.5 stars. I think from there I started seeing why people liked this series so much, but I haven't read any past that. I had the Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, both in physical form at one point in my room, and I just looked at them and I'm like, I am reading Oathbringer right now. I physically am unable to read another book that's as big as Oathbringer. I can't. And so I returned them to the library, and I will read them sometime this year. And then I read Choices of the Heart by Sarah M. Eden. My goodness, I might cry thinking about that book because it's setting up for another book in the series I've been waiting for since reading the second book in the series. I want it to come out. I know she's writing it right now. I really, 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 really hope it comes out soon-ish. I know she's gonna do them good. She always does. I'm so excited. Okay, To Marry an Earl by Karen Thornwell. I don't remember this book at all. My legs were hurting so bad I had to move. I've been sitting here for an hour and a half-ish. Okay, this one had a ton of potential. It follows a girl who basically got sold off to the highest bidder, and she's like, Dad, why in the world did you do this to me? But her dad's like, yeah, well, I'm broke, so goodbye, daughter, go have fun with your new life. And so she gets sent to this earl's house to marry the earl, and you follow all that stuff that happens. Just saying, the plot twist was not plot twisting because it is so clearly outlined by the character's name. If you hear the name, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, duh, she's the person. Duh. So it was not very interesting. It was fine. 3 stars. Now I have I'm Not Charlotte Lucas by Casey Stockton. This book had so much promise. I was giggling and laughing through the first half, and then by the time that they were like a couple, I was just bored because she was such an annoying character that I was like, okay, I'm done with you. Now that you're like not denying his feelings for you, this is no longer interesting. So first half was good, second half was meh. And then I read Otherwise Engaged by Joanna Barker. What in the world was that book? Yes, this is the book I was mad at. So this book had cheating in it that basically was like condoned because it's like, yeah, well, it's not cheating if I don't love him. And I'm like, cheating is when you kiss someone when you're engaged to someone else. Duh. Anyway, that one was dumb. I rated that one 2 stars, but it should be lower because it was dumb. Now we have A School for Brides by Patrice Kindle. I didn't know this was the second book in a series, but it was. I rated this one 4.5 stars. I would have rated it higher if I'd started it with the audiobook first, because I could not get into it because all of the names, my goodness, it's Miss Someone this, Miss Someone that, Miss Someone this, because it's like a school for girls, and so they all know each other by their last names. And so they call each other Miss Pachufinar or something, I don't even remember, like Pafofiner. Like, the names were so funny, and they were easier for me to remember when I was listening to them than when I was reading them, which sometimes it like flip-flops, whether it's easier for me to hear it to remember it or see it to remember it. It was good. I did like it. I want to read the first book in the series. I think it didn't like get rated super high just because I didn't get super connected to the characters very much, mostly because I just couldn't, because it was so hard because there were so many, because you get to know like 7 or 8 or 9 girls or something like that. It's a lot, but it was really cute. Then we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. 3 stars. Because swearing, underage drinking, and underage smoking, I guess. I don't think it's good to glorify that to kids, to be like, yeah, he's so cool because he's smoking. Can we not do that, please? It's really not good. Teens are so susceptible to doing dumb things as it is. We don't need to glorify it in books. And then I also just don't enjoy swearing in YA rom-coms. It's not my cup of tea. So I really liked the plot. I liked the characters. I liked the accountability that the main character had for her actions at the end of the book. That was so nice to read. But because of the problems I outlined, 3 stars. Then we have An Inconvenient Letter by Julie Wright. This is a rom-com done right, Regency romance. 4.5 stars. Really, really liked it. This is basically To All the Boys I Loved Before, but Regency romance, where she had written, but it's only one boy, where she'd written a series of love letters to a guy that she always thought was really cute. And then her maid or sister accidentally sends them, and she's like, I have to get those back. Please give me those back. And it was cute. I liked it. I think the reason I didn't enjoy it quite as much because it didn't like wow me. I did enjoy the romance aspect of it, but it wasn't like the best thing I read in the entire world. I can't tell you what would have made it better, but it wasn't like my favorite. All the same though, this is as high as I rate some of Sarah M. Eden's books, so it's not like a low rating at all. Dune by Carrie Corp. This is not Dune, D-U-N-E, this is D-O-O-N. And it's like if you fell into a fairy tale world by accident, basically. It was dumb. The main character multiple times told the love interest to not kiss her, and said no multiple times, and he just kept going. So that was really dumb, and I didn't like it. Plus, it was kind of boring, and it sets up for a sequel, and maybe the sequel would be better because I did like the side character more than I liked the main character, but the writing was also annoying. I don't know. That was a book that I read when I was younger, or started reading when I was younger, and I stopped because I kind of sensed that it was going to go to places I didn't want to read. And it's true, that book had swearing and a lot of innuendo in it. Then we have I'm Not His Style by Casey Stockton. This is the second book after the I'm Not Charlotte Lucas. And this one I think was, I don't know, the first one was based on, obviously, the Pride and Prejudice fairy tale. The first one was. I cannot remember if the second one was too, or if it was like Sense and Sensibility or something else. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. But that one I rated 3 stars because I don't know, something about the relationship just felt wrong to me. Both of them, I never really got any sense of the guy other than they're hot, tall, handsome. And the first one is infatuated with the main character, and the second one is not infatuated with the main character. And that's our only plot points in the entire book. And then we have By Any Other Name by Samantha Hastings. This one was good. I really liked it. I need to read more by her. It followed a girl dealing with the trauma of losing her parents and then almost dying also. And then all of this stuff coming out about her life. And then she's already engaged at the beginning of the book. And then basically how they make it through the troubles. It was really good. I did enjoy it. I need to read more by her. The Matchmaker's Lonely Heart by Nancy Campbell Allen. This one was like a romance thriller set in Regency era. It was interesting, but it was not quite as interesting because I knew who done it the whole time. If I didn't know who done it, it probably would have been more interesting. But I also probably would have been more scared. So I don't know. I rated it 3.5 stars. I do want to read more by her, at least the second book in the series, and see if I like it, because I did enjoy the romance. Then we have Windsong Manor by Julie Wright. What was the plot of that book? Oh, okay. This one was fine. There were several things about it that I was like, I don't know, but I did enjoy it. I really liked the ending, how basically he had to be better than he was. I did like the accountability aspect, but I also kind of was annoyed with it the whole time. It was okay. It was 4 stars. It was okay. It was okay for Julie Wright. Julie Wright, I've rated most of Julie Wright's books really, really highly. So it was okay for her writing. It was still really, really good. Then we have Summer Haven by Tiffany Oudkirk. What was that plot of that book? I remember it had a beautiful cover, and that's why I decided to read it. Oh, what? I apparently thought that the other book I was talking about was this book. What was the other book I was talking about? This is the book that was dumb, and I didn't like a lot of the stuff that was going on, and it was boring. 2.5 stars. What was the other one? Was that Otherwise Engaged? Okay. Before, when I was talking about The Roses of Feldstone by Esther Hatch, that book was actually good. It was not, it doesn't have the girl with the love triangle, basically. It has a girl basically being like, hey dude, I like you. Stop being an idiot. That one was actually really good. This book, the Summer Haven, was dumb. Give me a second, I'll tell you about it. That confused me. I was like, I feel like I already talked about this book. It was because I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay, Summer Haven had to do with a girl going to a summer estate. She had a crush on this one boy when they first went there, but now he's not paying any attention to her. And then this brother was the mean brother. And so she's like, I don't want to talk to you. You're dumb. And it has this dumb love triangle, and then this one brother gets the worst end of the stick, and this brother doesn't like do anything, and it's just the main character, so I don't know, it was dumb. 2.5 stars. That was September. In September I read 14 books total, 13 were new, and 1 was a reread. Now we're on to October. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Second book in the Stormlight series, 5 stars. Then we have Further Chronicles of Avonlea by Ellen Montgomery. I just had an itch to read an Ellen Montgomery book, and it's been a long time since I'd read that book. That one has a 4.5 star because every other story was 5 stars except for this one story that has like this guy. It's basically like grooming, but supposed to be made cute, and it's not made cute. I don't know that. That's a questionable story. Then we have Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. This I rated 3.5 stars. I still think about this book sometimes. It was really interesting. It just was written in a way that was like, it was like the whole point of the story was the fact that the main character wasn't likable. And that was really annoying because I was like, the main character wasn't likable. Like, was I supposed to like her because she wasn't likable? I don't know. It was weird. 3.5 stars. Then we have Partials by Dan Wells. Number 1, so good. I haven't read a lot of books by him because I discovered him a couple years ago from the Intentionally Blank podcast. And then I decided I didn't want to read him because he writes thrillers. And then I was like, actually, I want to read his books because he's so funny. And he is so funny. Partials is dystopian, not Hunger Games-esque, but it is dystopian. And I would say it's on the level of Hunger Games in the way that your actions have consequences that make sense. After reading Divergent, my goodness, those actions did not have consequences that made sense. But Hunger Games, the consequences make sense. Anyway, it was really good. 4 stars. Then we have Meriden Park by Julie Danes. 3.5 stars. What was that book? Oh, it was supposed to be a retelling of Robin Hood and Maid Marian. And it did not make any sense. And I didn't really love it, but it was fine. Like, it was written well. It just was kind of boring. I don't know. Then we have Christy and the Snobs by Chan Chow. This was a graphic novel that I picked up at the store and I was going to give to my siblings for Christmas, but I decided I wanted to read it first because I wanted to. And I did not expect this cute little graphic novel to make me cry, but it did. So 4 stars. We have Edge Dancer, which is 2.5 in the Stormlight series by Brandon Sanderson. 4 stars. Love Lift. She's my favorite. Then we have Enchanted by Alethla Contis. This one took me a bit to get through because basically they don't establish the world building at all. They just kind of throw it at you and expect you to be like, oh yeah, this is the world now. And as they go on, they kind of explain things, but they just throw so much lore and backstory at you at the beginning that you're like, oh my goodness, I don't understand. And then when you get to the end, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And there is a second book that I could read if I wanted to. It was interesting though. I might read the second book. And then we have the Geography of You and Me by Jennifer E. Smith. I found this one at the thrift store a while ago, and then I just decided to pick it up and read it. My TBR die picked it for my TBR that month, and so I decided to read it. It was really good. I rated that one 4.5 stars. That one was interesting. I did like it. It was kind of a different flavor of rom-com than I've read in a very long time, but I did really like it. Rebecca by Daphne Demure. I think this is one of the it wasn't the first classic that I read that year. I think I reread some other ones, but it's the first new one that I read. 5 stars. So good. I love that book. I need to read more by her because she basically tells you the ending at the beginning of the book, but you don't understand because you haven't read the book. And so after ending the book, it ends you on like what feels like a cliffhanger. But when you go back and reread the beginning, it makes complete sense. It was so brilliant. The City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. 3.75 stars. I will read that whole series. I kind of can sense what's coming up, and I know because Destiny also read the series this year, and she was saying like the one thing that made her feel so icky the whole time. And I'm like, all right, I understand, I get it. Because I already know that it's not real, because it's already put in there that it's not a real plot point, but it still is like, what? Like, why? Why did you decide? Why? Then we have The 5 Apology Languages by Gary Chapman. I rated that one. I didn't rate it because it's nonfiction. I like The 5 Love Languages from reading it. I feel like The Apology Languages just does not hit it on the head, mostly because, I don't know, I think they're different. I think it could help someone. It did not help me. Let's just put it that way. So that was all the books I read in October. I read 12 books that month. 9 were new books. 3 were rereads. Now we're on to November. All right, and the first one, starting out strong with Fragments by Dan Wells. This one was 5 stars. I really enjoyed where the story went in the second book. It was so interesting. Then we have Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, 5 stars. This is all reread, by the way. Then we have With a Little Luck by Marissa Meyer, 5 stars. So good. Probably should not have rated this one 5 stars just because of what it was, but for some reason, something about that main character and that relationship, something about it got me in that like the cutesy, giggling, happy mood, and just thinking about it makes me happy. Nothing serious is happening in that book, but it's cute. I really, really liked it. Then we have Ruins by Dan Wells, 5 stars. Ended the partial series. Some things about it still make me think, because I'm like, why did he put that in? And then I think about it more and I'm like, okay, that does make sense actually. It was interesting. It was a very interesting series. Then we have Forget Me Not by Sarah M. Eden. This is me rereading yet more of her books. This one was me rereading what is that series called? The Gents series in preparation for the new book that came out, which I ended up not getting to in 2024, but I did read it this month. But the first one, Forget Me Not, 5 stars. I will never, ever get over the Jonquils. They're my favorite in the entire world. The rest of them, like, yeah, I like them. They're good. Jonquils, favorites. Love them. They're my heart and my soul. Then we have Lily of the Valley. That's the second one. Give that one 4 stars. It's not quite my favorite as good, but it's still good. And then we have Leaping Beauty and Other Animal Fairy Tales by Gregory Maguire. This one is just a cute little, basically a kid's book. I kind of expected it to be that. Went in thinking it was nothing serious. It wasn't anything serious, but it was really cute, and I did like it. 5 stars. Then we have Dawn Shard, which is 3.5 in the Stormlight series by Brandon Sanderson. 5 stars. I understood it this time, which is saying a lot because the first time I read it, I understood nothing. Then we have Fleur de Lis by Sarah M. Eden. This is the 3rd book in the Gent series. 5 stars. Really, really good. Something about Henri and Nicolette is just wonderful. I love their characters and just how they love each other so much and they'll do anything for each other. So good. Then we have Dark One Forgotten by Brandon Sanderson. This one I should not have rated as high as I did. It's almost a 5 star in my brain. It's 4.75 on paper. It just made me feel things. And I guess I just don't read enough thrillers, and that's why it was thrillery to me. It was just because I just don't read a lot of thrillers, but it was really good. Then we have The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. 4.5 stars. It's not my favorite of the series, so it's the lowest of any of them, but it's really cute. And that was all the books I read in November, with 11 books total, 5 new books, and 6 rereads. And now we get to December, and all of the rereads I read. I think I read like 4 new books the entire month, and I had 20 rereads. So let me tell you all about them really quick. So we've got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. And The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis, 5 stars. It's the first time I've read all of them since I was really, really young. They're really good. I like them a lot. Then we have Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I finally finished my reread. 5 stars. Finally finished my reread just in time to not buy the book and end up reading the book in the new year. Then we have Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. 5 stars. Still one of my favorite books of all time. I wish I had not been at work when I finished reading it because I wanted to cry at the ending of the book, but I was at work, so that was sad. Then we have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. 5 stars. Was not at work when I read the ending of the book, so I was able to cry. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It's the first time I read it of my own accord since being out of school, and it was really, really good. I need to read more Dickens because I think I'm older and I'll understand it better now. And then we have The Quiet Little Women, A Christmas Story by Louisa May Alcott. This is an anthology, and you know me and my Christmas anthologies. 5 stars. Louisa May Alcott, you have my heart. Then we have My Lady Jane by Cynthia... Who wrote My Lady Jane? Oh, I guess it actually is Cynthia Hand, is the name of the person who wrote it. Okay, that one's a retelling of, what's her name? Jane someone. It's like a retelling of English history, but with magical realism. Not magical realism, just straight up magic. And if she hadn't died, basically. It was really good. It would have been higher if it didn't have a lot of sexual stuff in it. It was good though. It just should not have been YA, I guess. Then I finished reading the Book of Mormon. And then we have All Hearts Come Home for Christmas with a bunch of different people, but Sarah and Eden, as always. 4.5 stars, mostly for Sarah and Eden. The rest of them I was like, yeah, whatever. Then we have Hatchet by Gary Paulson, 5 stars. Then we have Meet Me Under the Kissing Bough by Josie S. Kilpack and then a bunch of other people. That one I rated 4 stars. All of them were kind of like okay for me, and then there was one that I was like, oh, that was really good, so 4 stars. And then we have Yearbook by Ali Condi. This is a reread. I'm so excited to continue the reread. I was just really busy reading Wit and Truth, so I was not able to get to it, but I'm going to redo the reread. But that one, 5 stars. So good. We have Brian's Winter by Gary Paulson, 5 stars. I'll tell you my thoughts on the entire series when I get to the end of all reading them. Then we have The Tale of Despero by Kate DiCamillo. I need to reread more of her books because she just has a certain way of writing that kind of just makes you feel happy, I guess. But I was reading that one with my boyfriend. 5 stars. Then we have The River by Gary Paulson. That one's 4.5. It's not quite my favorite of the series. It doesn't have the same vibe as the rest of them do. And then we have Remembering the Joy of Christmas by a bunch of different authors. And that one was just 4 stars. It was just a bunch of like cute stories about Christmas from a bunch of different people. And it was good. I liked a lot of them. Some of them I was just like, eh. So that one's why it's 4 stars. Then we have Brian's Return by Gary Paulson, 5 stars. And then Brian's Hunt by Gary Paulson, again, 5 stars. My thoughts on the whole series. I really like Brian as a character. I like seeing him grow up. I like seeing his brain and seeing how it gets changed by him being in the woods. I really like the reread, actually. I don't know if I'll do it again soon, but I do want to read more of Gary Paulson's writing because I like the way he writes. It's blunt and straight to the point, but sometimes that's what you want, you know? And then the final book I read in 2024 for a total of 190 books was the New Testament. I finished my read on December 31st, and that is all the books I read in 2024. And this is what my statistics page looks like. I'll give you a quick read just for fun. I read 190 books. Out of those, 102 were new books. So I fulfilled my goal of reading new books, and then 88 were rereads. And then I had 75 5 stars, and then 43 4 stars, 29 3 stars, and the rest of like the 0.5s are just like 9, 3, 2, and 1s. So I had a really good reading year. I had a lot of fun. I'm excited to read even more new books this year and reread even more books that I am thinking about and really wanting to reread. And I'm excited to take y'all along with me. So I'm sorry this video is so long. I really hope it's not 2 hours long because that's how long my footage is right now. But thank y'all for watching. I will see y'all in the next video. I'm not gonna draw this out any longer because I'm tired and my voice hurts. Anyway, goodbye. I love you. Mwah.